Welcome to the Cutting Edge Convention, a worldwide movement to revolutionize your life. No more stumbling around in the dark, wasting precious weeks, months, and years trying to figure it out on your own. Get ready for valuable innovations and strategies. And now, here's your host, Marcy Peters, the Age Backward Mentor.
Hello, and welcome to the Cutting Edge Convention, innovations to revolutionize your life. I'm Marcy Peters, the Age Backward Mentor. I help smart, successful men and women step into a life they love and a body they love being in. Today, I want to introduce you to a doctor. This is Dr. Todd Watts. And today we're talking about something that's really important, something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is explaining unexplained chronic illness. So we're going to dig into this topic, what's really going on behind the scenes, give you some information and some answers so that you can move past that in your life, so that you can work with what's going on for you. So let me tell you about Dr. Todd Watts. He's a functional wellness practitioner and chiropractic physician. He's a father and husband, and he's had his own issues with chronic illness, and we're going to talk about that. He often hears from people who are frustrated and have lost hope because they have been to multiple doctors who have not been able to help them. He's created a proprietary process called Restore the Real You that gives people the hope and energy to take back their health so they can live their true purpose in life. Todd, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yes, so I'm really excited about this topic. Let's start with hearing a little bit more about you and how you started working with people, got into the health industry, and now working with people with unexplained chronic illness.
Okay, my journey started when I was 28, and I had gotten Epstein-Barr virus. And as you well know, and many people do out there, it can be really highly affect your health. And so my journey after that, within a couple of years, I started having seasonal allergies really bad. I started having also food allergies and headaches. Multiple types of symptoms started occurring, chronic wrist pain. I started having eventually some low back pain that just didn't seem to go away. And by my late 30s, then I started getting really a lot of fatigue. And also, going back to that again, is I had, at age 38, I started getting a lot of chronic fatigue, and headaches started occurring. I started getting a lot of small joint pain, things that I just didn't realize what was happening to me at the time. I went through a lot of stress in my late 30s and turning into my 40s. And through that point in time, I decided to go back to get my doctorate. And while I was getting my doctorate is when I found out, going through some doctors that I went to some classes on, that I had chronic Lyme disease and Babesia as well, one of the co-infections. And then through clearing some of that out, I realized that I had food allergies such as dairy and gluten. And when I ate those, it really highly affected me, like it does a lot of us that have chronic illness. And so during that process, I realized through meeting another doctor, Matt Buckley, he talked to me about parasites and how they were affecting me. And so I went through numerous protocols and spent about a year and a half working on clearing parasites out. And my food allergies went away. I no longer got headaches. My seasonal allergies completely gone. My chronic wrist pain gone. My fatigue now is, I would say, 90% better than it was, where before I just want to crash every night when I come home from work. Now it's great because I can come home and have the energy to spend the time with my 4 kids. And it's, they're just the joy of my life, and be able to have quality time with my wife and do activities that for 8 years I just was wiped out. I couldn't even work out. Go to the gym. If I worked out, I'd crash for 10 days. And so I think that's another common thing that a lot of people have with chronic diseases. They can't do a lot of this physical activity and work. And it really has helped overcoming that, to where now I'm working out again at the gym. I'm able to do so many things that I feel like I'm able to live my true purpose in life.
Oh, thank you for
And
sharing. Your story probably sounds like a lot of people's, also my own, in terms of dealing with that fatigue and all of these miscellaneous unexplained symptoms and not knowing how to treat it, how to deal with it, or what is actually the root of the problem. So for you, and probably for a lot of people, the issue was parasites.
yeah, parasites, I think chronic virus infection and Lyme disease. So chronic Lyme disease, a combination of all of those, which is very important to address each part of that.
Okay. Yeah. So, how would someone know that parasites are the issue? Are there specific things, or is it just general symptoms like what you described?
I think for each person it's different depending on the type of parasite. There's multiple classifications. So you have your cestos, like your tapeworms, that could have a different reaction to people compared to your flukes, compared to your intestinal worms, compared to the protozoans, which are the microscopic ones that can be in your blood and throughout the body as well. And so common symptoms for many people are just chronic digestive issues, gas, bloating, gut pain. You can see anxiety, depression, headaches, other things such as just trouble, even just the brain fog, trouble thinking, trouble sleeping at night, either insomnia, can't fall asleep, or difficulty staying asleep and they wake up multiple times during the night. Fatigue is another thing, pain and achy muscles and joints. So there's a wide variety of symptoms. And some people say there's 85 to 90% of people have parasites. I look at it from the standpoint is if you have a pulse, check that pulse, yeah, you got a parasite. Because it's just part of who it is, right? It's in our food, it's in our water, it's in it's everywhere around us. So animals have it. There's so many ways that we can get exposure to it, and it's just not taught anymore that everybody has them.
Okay, so is there a way to know if that's what you're dealing with, if parasites are in fact a problem, and it sounds like a lot of times it is?
There's different types of tests that are available to do, but a lot of times tests aren't very accurate. So the way I look at it is, one, I just see, well, what are your symptoms? And do they match up with a lot of things I see with different types of parasites? Two, what is your case history? So I go through the case history to see, oh yeah, you more than likely have had exposure to it. And three, I look at blood work to see in a way if there's anything correlated to maybe in the CDC or other parts of the blood work that may be correlated towards a low-grade infection or a parasite that may be causing the problems. Sometimes it's very simple. I see eosinophils, at a rate of 8 or 10, or I've seen them as high as 30 on people. Definitely, it's easy to assess parasites, but most people have really low eosinophils in their blood work. So then it's not something that you can just say, well, it's parasites. I also do a lot of muscle testing and energetic work in how I assess and what's going on. But usually pretty much through doing a pretty in-depth case history on what they're going through and symptoms, I can figure out what's going on.
Okay. So you're the doctor that people come to when they have, they've gone to all these other doctors. No one has really been able to pinpoint what the issue is and what's causing the problem. And then you can help with that diagnosis. And then also treatment. I know you have a protocol for dealing with the parasitic infections as well as other types of things. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Let me give you an example. I had a gal that came down from Montana to see me at my clinic, and she was suffering from hives for over a year. Every day she broke out in hives, and it was really debilitating her life. She was in her 60s and had seen many specialists and with no avail. So we figured out she had parasites, and within 10 days she passed a 6-foot tapeworm. And so with one of the products that I formulated, along with a couple other ones, we're able to get that pulled out of there. And she's been a year and a half now. She hasn't had hives. And so it's life-changing for her, right? Very much life-changing. And we see that all the time with patients is all of a sudden all these symptoms that they're having go away and they don't come back, which is fantastic. So the protocol we go through is we address the bigger like the tapeworms and the bigger parasites, because within those can be the smaller, the protozoans or bacteria or viruses, other types of pathogens within there. And so to be really successful at treating a lot of chronic illness and disease, you have to be sure that you're getting the parasites out. So what I found getting over my Lyme stuff was that once I addressed the parasites, I didn't cycle where I felt good for a while and crashed down. The cycling stopped. I no longer had that issue, which was, finally, it's like I finally found why why I'm not so chronically fatigued and why I'm not having these issues of can't working out, can't eat foods, can't do a lot of different things. So that's what really I've noticed the big difference was addressing that made all the difference in the world.
Okay. Yeah. And how long does it generally take to, and is it possible to clear out the parasites completely?
It's a really good question. I think that patients notice a difference within the first couple of months. But what I tell them is that I've seen the best results for those that are consistent for at least a year. It could take some. I've seen it even 2-3 years if they work on clearing things out, depending on how bad they were and how sick they were. Because you can't just bombard them with huge detoxification and killing things off, right? You have to be able to go at a pace that they can handle and they can live with. Another thing to look at is a big part of getting rid of the parasites and keeping them away is creating the environment to where the parasites don't like to be. So clearing out toxins, heavy metals, radiation stuff, all the Roundup and environmental toxins in our foods that we see that it is so prolific and really affecting the gut. The other component is balancing the diet to where your body is saying, okay, this is going to make me stronger and boost my immune system to where I don't get infected again.
Okay.
Where I can handle it.
So it can take quite a while. It sounds like it's a longer term healing process, so that you don't throw the body into like over detoxification, which causes a lot more symptoms and difficulties there. So it's almost like the mindset needs to be that it's going to be a longer term healing process, and you start to see improvements along the way.
Exactly. And we do see the improvements all along the way. So I think it depends on whether the issues are dealing with acute or chronic. Acute symptoms we can get really quickly and get rid of those. Chronic symptoms, those are what take a longer period of time. So fibromyalgia, for example, that's something that people have suffered for a long period of time. They have to get the stuff out of there that's creating that problem. And that might take us 4 months, it might take us 6 months, it might take us a year. But I've seen patients with chronic migraines for 10 years and headaches and fibromyalgia 4 months later, their symptoms are dramatically reduced from those points. But I just say it's always really good to be sure you're following through the whole process so you're not getting reinfected or cycling back through it. And being that there's different types and there's many different kinds, it's really important to address all the different types and kinds of parasites.
So when you're talking about getting reinfected, how would that happen? What to avoid?
So a couple things. One, you have to worry about the larvae that's in the body, and you have to worry about the eggs. So they're constantly producing eggs, and then the larvae, so they're hatching. So you want to stay on stuff long enough to where you're getting rid of that. Secondly, if you have animals, dogs and cats, and even if you have horses and other animals, they have parasites, and you have to be sure you treat them, and so that you don't get reinfected again. Another thing is you have to consider the major sources of where you do get parasites. So washing your fruits and vegetables is very important because many of those come from third world countries. And your meats, making sure meat's cooked enough, because if it's raw or rare meat, you're more than likely going to get stuff that hasn't been cooked enough and get reinfected. Water sources also have parasites, and you see it, diving in the lake, rivers sometimes, depending on, what type of conditions that stuff is in. It may have bacteria as well as parasites and stuff in them. I think, traveling, of course, a lot of people travel, and I've seen patients come back from after traveling down to the Caribbean, and then they're sick for 10 years afterwards and have all these bowel issues and chronic diarrhea or headaches or all kinds of different problems. The other thing is you see mosquito bites. So stuff can be transmitted through mosquito bites, through tick bites, and it's not just Lyme disease, but it's bacteria and other types of parasites that can happen that cause chronic anemia, and they can create these issues in the body. So that's the protozoans that can cross over through there too.
Okay. So hygiene, looking at the quality of your water source and your food source. Probably you're not a fan of sushi, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's not my big thing. I know people love it, but I'm not a big fan of sushi, especially after years ago I took a medical parasitology class and I saw all the different life cycles of parasites through that. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of sushi.
I figured as much. That's a hard one for a lot of people because it's pretty well loved. And, we get to make choices about what our priorities are and what's important to us. Same with our pets. We love our pets and we want to, have them close to us, perhaps sleeping in the bed. So I think it's a balance. It's a balance act, trying to get the right stuff in and the wrong stuff out. Okay, so I want to ask you about beneficial parasites. Is there such a thing as parasites that we need, or would they all be considered as a negative effect on our health?
It's a good question, because there's been some of this stuff floating around that they're using and trying parasites to help out with certain diseases. So in my opinion, at this point in time, is that parasites are that they are parasites. They're taking away from you. They're not a good bacteria that benefits you. So they take away nutrients. They do damage to your body. And so I think there's better ways to deal with celiacs or gluten intolerance than putting parasites into your body. I'm not a big fan of that yet.
Okay. And I was thinking of that also. Okay, so the idea is to avoid and then treat yourself if that's the situation that you have, if you have a parasitic infection. Can you briefly go over the types of parasites that you see most often?
Okay. So the types of parasites I see most often are going to be intestinal types of parasites. So with animals especially, you're going to see some different versions of tapeworm, roundworm, liver flukes are very common as well. There's some of the protozoans. So in the protozoan factor, which are the microscopic parasites, that's when you see the Amoeba histolytica. Some people with IBS or Crohn's seem to have more of those types that are causing those problems. But for the most part, what we see is the parts of each of them. So whether it's pinworm, threadworm, roundworm, which are mostly intestinal, but also different phases can go into the lung. And some of the threadworm can go into the muscles and throughout the body. The flukes really are important to address because those are so common, not only in the liver, but there's pancreatic flukes, they can affect kidney function, lungs. There's even ones that are blood flukes. And then that can create some anemia issues as well. The tapeworms, obviously, are just more in the intestinal system too. And with those, that's where I think you get more in dealing with nutrient deficiencies and digestive issues as well. And all of those can create toxicities which aren't good for the body. And they can cause your brain fog or immune reactions to different foods. So, for example, I had a patient that I worked with, and she got tested for all these food allergies. And so she had her list of food allergies that she avoided. But she still had the same problems, eating foods that weren't on her food allergy testing. So my suggestion was theoretically, maybe the problem was the food she was eating, the parasites were taking those and creating more toxins, and she was allergic to the toxins from parasites or the immune cytokines, the immune reactions to the parasites. And so that's where it's like, okay, we need to address parasites if you have all these food allergies. And we did. Within 2 weeks, she was able to increase the amount of food, types of food she could eat and the reactions she was having. And she started gaining weight again. And that's a big issue for a lot of people. It's not just whether you need to gain weight, because, you know, parasites are great for losing weight per se, and tapeworms, and you see that in third world countries. But you can also have parasites and be very obese because it creates other dysfunction within the body. So I don't necessarily relate weight to a parasite. You can be either overweight or underweight. And what I look at is chronic constipation is a really good example of intestinal parasites, whether it's roundworm or pinworm, that sort of thing. Headaches and migraines could be threadworm. And, you know, food allergies can be any of those across the board. So there's a long answer to your short question.
Okay. Thank you. And so do you modify all of your patients' diets? Do you believe in gluten-free, and do you do that across the board, or how do you handle that?
It's a really good question. I look at it depends on where they're at and what health issues they have. So many times I put them on either a cellular healing diet or paleo diet, and I try and go more grain-free and sugar-free. That seems to really help. Also dairy-free, depending on the parasites. Dairy can actually be one of the top reasons people have headaches, is how that all goes with those proteins that can cause that problem. So they seem to like the proteins, such as the dairy and the gluten, that create the reactions in the body. So yeah, more paleo style, sometimes ketogenic with patients, depending on what their goals are, what their diets. Overall, I look at it what they call a yang diet. So in Chinese medicine, you have your yin and your yang. And that what people tend to lack when they have more yin, when they're more yin dominant, then they tend to be more susceptible to being sick more often. So bringing up their yang efficiency to be back in balance will help that as well. So there's different ways you can look at that, but I think that's really important, balancing out the yin and yang.
Yeah, I agree with you. I take the same approach. When you're trying to rid toxins from the body, you don't want to be adding more back in that your body then has to process and deal with, and use that energy instead of, to deal with the toxins instead of healing, which, it's
exactly.
You want the energy to go towards actually healing and restoring so that you can have your health back.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the other things that help is fasting. So I've had patients do 4-day fast and treat, and it's amazing what can purge out of them at that time. I had one of my patients recently done over a 30-day water fast, and he's just passing tons of parasites with my protocol and doing it. He feels great. He's lost over 40 pounds and, getting rid of so much inflammation out of his body.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, fasting doesn't work for everyone. I think it can be tried strategically on a case basis. And for the people that it's appropriate for, it really works amazingly, because then you're not having to deal with the constant influx of food on top of everything else.
Yeah, and you're right about that, because the people that have blood sugar dysfunction and they get a little hypoglycemic, that happens with people that have parasites. One of the signs of parasites. And the important thing with them is to get their blood sugar balanced out and get their bodies burning to where they can burn fat again. Then it makes it a lot easier to do the fasts. But initially, you have to really balance out blood sugar, because has a high effect on adrenal function. And adrenals are really important to support while you're going through that process.
Yes, and if your blood sugar isn't stable, then it is really hard to fast, and it can have an effect where, now there's a binging situation because it's so unstable. And
exactly.
Goes into
yep. And that's all individual basis, like you said, how we work with the patients. And it might be down the road after several months of working with them to where they're able to do that. Maybe it's a 1-day water fast or maybe it's bone broth fast for a day and then eventually 2 days. We slowly work it out to where they can help open up those detox pathways and help the liver give it a break, and the intestinal system and the kidneys and everything.
Okay, great. What are some other tools that you use when you're working with your patients on healing?
So some of the things that are really important in the process is, one, the no sugar for sure. Two, whatever you can do to improve vitality. So for some people, that's working out, getting that body heated up, getting the strength. That'll actually benefit a lot of people. So that could be 5 minutes a day starting out, to where we don't overwhelm the body. And or some people can do it for an hour a day. But I recommend at least improving vitality in some type of way like that. Another thing is looking at letting go of the victim thinking, because the emotional component is really tied to parasites. It's amazing. I've seen several of my patients that had a lot of abuse when they were young, and just the correlation with parasites after they had emotional releases, they passed a bunch of parasites. So there could be a tie-in or a correlation with some of those emotional things. So I recommend emotional healing along the process. Liver detoxing, be sure you're doing some coffee enemas along that process. Really increasing bile production or support enzymes, hydrochloric acid, are really important in your digestion, as well as what they tend to do is they produce ammonia along with the bacteria and neutralize a lot of the stomach acid. So getting the stomach acid back up to where the stomach physiology is working properly to digest your proteins also is important, to then signal the liver and gallbladder to dump the bile into the small intestine, as well as it then signals the pancreas to dump the proteases into the small intestine. So it's, really focusing on digestion is super important. Chewing your food enough, eating properly, nutritional balancing, and then using herbs and homeopathics and oils and things that will help support not only getting rid of parasites, but upregulating your immune system and then downregulating what's overactive.
Okay. I love that you take a very comprehensive and integrative approach, and you're really looking at everything. And thank you for bringing up the emotional piece of it and the mindset, because those always go hand in hand, especially with chronic illness.
Yes.
The physical stuff happens, and then the emotional stuff, or perhaps the emotional stuff kind of starts that roller coaster. And that's so important. You mentioned victim mindset, and that was, actually a big part of my story, and why, I needed to shift that to turn things around. And that's true. I think in many cases, I see that a lot with my clients.
That was, for me, my big turnaround was, I remember coming home one day from work, pulling out to the driveway, and my 5-year-old and 9-year-old are out front playing baseball with my neighbor. And, it just hit me hard as, what, that should be me. I'm their father. The first time they played baseball was with my neighbor, not even me. And yet when I was a kid, my dad was so involved in sports. He coached my baseball teams. It's always there for me. I wanted to be that same type of dad. But I was so tired and fatigued. And after that day, that gave me the motivation to succeed and push through, my fatigue and tiredness. And I think we all have to find that inner thing, that inner drive of, I'm going to do whatever it takes to overcome, this illness in this process. And that was my defining moment. At that day, it was like a punch in the gut, and it motivated me. And now it's been great. And we all need to find that and allow things that have happened in the past to let go, or either seek help to let that go.
Yeah, it's really important. Not just to change at the behavioral level at the top layer, but to actually do that deeper inner work so that those changes can stick.
In our process of helping people and holding them accountable in our clinic with our patients, we have a process called the 3 Bs. And the 3 Bs are being healthy, and there's different parts to that. Second one is being connected. So relationships, how important it is to be connected, showing and telling how much you love and have gratitude towards those that are in your life. And the third part is being grounded. So addressing the spiritual component where you're at, whether it's through meditation or prayer, through listening to uplifting and spiritual components to help your soul to be grounded. And so we help them keep a tally each week and help them understand how important it is to have compliance. Is that you have all these components to healing. It's not just, oh, I got to change my diet, or I just got to take these medications or herbs that will get me better. It's a comprehensive approach that will heal the whole body.
Yes, so important. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, Todd, so is there anything else that you would like to share with us in regards to healing unexplained chronic illness, working with healing the parasite situation, anything that we haven't discussed?
Yeah, so there's a component of it that a lot of us have heard of biofilm or mucus buildup in the intestines. And so one of my theories is that with all this inflammation, all this mucus is built up in the intestines and will hold that stuff in. So it makes it really hard to clean out the gut, to get rid of bacterial infections and fungus and yeast and toxins. And so I have my product, the Para-1 from Cellcore Biosciences, we formulated to help remove all that biofilm, all that mucoid plaque. It also helps to remove the ropeworm. Some people may think that is. It also helps to remove parasites. So my belief is to really get a good microbiome in the gut, you got to clear all the garbage and all the sewer and gunk that's in there. You get a really fresh environment that will then allow the good bacteria to flourish, and then you can feed the good bacteria. I'm really a big proponent of good prebiotics and helping restore that proper microbiome, because the good ones will come up and succeed when you feed them the right foods. The diet and lifestyle in Americans is they eat and they don't eat well. They don't have a really good, healthy lifestyle traditionally, and so that allows a toxic environment in there to flourish, which then allows the parasites to flourish. So our goal is to remove that in there so they don't allow a really good microbiome, because your bacteria in your gut, it's where 95% of your serotonin is made. So to feel healthy, to feel well, to heal, you have to have the right environment in the gut. Yeah, so that's my big takeaway is, hey, let's get the right stuff, let's clear it all out, and let's create a really good environment through all these things we talked about earlier.
Yeah, that's where your sense of well-being is actually coming from, that sense of vitality. A lot of it does get produced with the neurotransmitters and also the microbiome that you mentioned, the bacteria. Yeah, so I agree with that approach, really to clear everything out so that you have, fresh soil to plant your flowers in.
Exactly. I like that.
Wonderful. All right. So, let's see. I want to talk about, you have a free gift so that people can actually take a look at what's going on and see if parasites might be an issue. The parasite assessment you mentioned.
Yes, we have a parasite questionnaire assessment that allows us to gauge, and numerous questions that allow us to gauge through an amount of points that we add up if you may have a parasite infection. So that really helps. We can send it out to people, and it's a great gauge of assessing what's really happening as part of how we figure this out. Okay.
So I'm going to have the link. It's also, I'll tell you too, Dr. Todd Watts, DrToddWatts.com, Dr. Todd Watts. So I, go ahead and take your assessment. If you have a feeling, a gut feeling, any kind of intuition around this, and in conjunction with the symptoms that you may be dealing with. And then I understand you're offering a free 15-minute consult for the first responders as well.
Yes, exactly. Glad to just talk to them and see what's going on with their health, and whether I can help them or guide them to someone who can. So I'm happy to facilitate that for them.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. That's really generous. So make sure you're one of those first responders. He's going to take as many of you as he can, given his busy practice. Okay, so Todd, is there anything else that you want to mention before we wrap up?
I appreciate your time and willingness to talk to me, and I really enjoy this. Is my passion because it's changed my life dramatically. I no longer get headaches and migraines from eating dairy. I can eat things that before in the past I wasn't able to. It's amazing how when you do feel good, you feel like you can live your true purpose and mission in life. And I want to help as many people as I can to do that. And I know there's a lot of people out there struggling with that issue. And I hope and pray for them that they can overcome that.
Thank you so much. I see your passion and I feel that. And I agree. If you're struggling in your physical body, just with energy, just with, being able to make it through the day, it's really hard to feel connected and to tap into your gifts and talents and be able to, have the amazing life that you were destined for. So I really appreciate you for doing this work and for, explaining the unexplainable. So everyone look for the link. Go ahead and take that assessment, see what your score is, and then we'll go from there. And I want to wish everyone a happy, healthy day. Thank you for joining us on the Cutting Edge Conventions, Innovations to Revolutionize Your Life. I will see you again for the next interview. Take care for now. Bye.
Thank you for being part of the Cutting Edge Convention. We don't want you to miss a single valuable session. To have the entire event available to you at any time, purchase the package now before the event ends. That's when the price goes up. And watch your emails to get your next steps from Marcy.